So what's up you guys? I'm an NBA fan crazy. We're coming out with 3 videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12 Eastern. So before we get started on today's topic, make sure you get subscribed to the channel, not miss a piece of daily NBA content. Now saying all of that, let's get on to today's video. So news just came out earlier yesterday that Paul George signed a 4-year 190 million extension. So this removes him from the 2021 free agency because according to the terms of the previous contract he signed in OKC 4-year 137, there was a player option for, if I'm right, of 2021 22. So now that will be replaced effective immediately by his new contract, 4-year 190. This could stretch to a 5-year 226 million contract. Wow. Happy for Paul George, he got the money and he made a promise, which is probably the main topic of today's video. Paul George extension, what do you think about the promise that he made? That's gonna be the title of today's video. So Paul George promised that he would bring a championship to this Clippers organization, and that is what he owes them. That might be pretty true, as the Clippers gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and 5 first-round picks to get Paul George, or else Kawhi Leonard was Laker bound. He was bound to go to the Los Angeles Lakers unless they didn't get Paul George. Same thing for the Toronto Raptors too. Ultimately, the Raptors didn't want to give up Pascal Siakam, nor did they want to give up Fred VanVleet if it came to that. Clippers, on the other hand, were willing to give up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and those picks they accumulated while trading guys like Blake Griffin and Tobias Harris for more value down the road. So, for now, I want to talk about the so-called promises Paul George made. He said he wanted to bring a championship to the organizations because what he owes them. And now one interesting thing that I already knew but I read, which I can't show here but I know face to face, is what Paul George said in relation to those teams he's played for. Number one, in Indiana, the team that he was drafted for, the team he played 7 seasons for before they traded him to Oklahoma City for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. So he said that he wanted to stay in Indy and win one, and never. He wanted to be in Indy and win one, not never ever leave Indy. He played very well. He established himself as a top player in the NBA in Indiana. He was one of the better players on the Pacers team that took LeBron James to 7 games until that horrible injury he got in 2014. And after that, he's still been a star, but not what people thought he would be until that injury. So they traded him out. And this quote that Paul George said that he wanted to never leave Indy and win one here, quoting Indy, said months before he demanded a trade. And then they traded him to Oklahoma City when he wanted to go to the Lakers. And then 1 year left on his contract, if I'm right. So then he went on a private party and said that he had unfinished business. He's here to stay and then do some things, and that he was here to stay and do some special things. So he said he was gonna stay, and he signed a 4-year, $137 million extension. So there he came third in most valuable player voting, and he was also a part of, if I'm right, defensive player of the year voting. So Paul George, he had maybe his best year in OKC in 2018 to 19, being third in MVP voting and also being a really good defender. And now let's talk about why the Clippers acquired him. Now, according to the sport that says you can never win unless, like, it's almost a known thing, your best player is always like required to be a two-way wing, because that's how things go down today. A two-way wing being your best player to win. Okay, so Paul George brings a skill set like a two-way wing to the caliber. He can play on the ball, he can create for himself, he can go off the ball. He's a really good catch and shoot player, and he can also really defend because he's a lengthy, tall, athletic defender who can defend wings, and he can also defend small ball fours, and he's also quick enough and athletic enough to defend guards. So we understood why the Clippers got a guy like Paul George to pair with Kawhi Leonard, two-way wings. But the thing is, they never really fit each other, because even though Kawhi and Paul, they wanted to be there, the roster, after the Clippers came, there was a report that the older players were against the preferential treatment the Clippers got. Montrezl Harrell was the main advocate for. He came out and said that we are not a championship team, before Doc Rivers told him to hush it down. Harsh criticism from Harrell there, because it showed that he was willing to go to the press to say something. And as a locker room, you don't want to say things like that to the media, because you want to keep it internal and solve it internally. But that was how bad the Clippers' chemistry was last year, because they were given preferential treatment. Paul George blaming Doc Rivers for not having chemistry issues there. So it's interesting to say that Paul George, and one more thing he said that he was a Clippers fan. He grew up a Clippers fan, but ironically, he idolized Kobe Bryant. There was this tweet he made in 2010 where he said Lakers all day, but it's interesting to see him say that he always grew up a Clippers fan. Pretty interesting, don't you think? So he has made this statement all over his career, saying he had unfinished business, he was gonna bring a chip, and he was here to stay. He wanted to. Now the recent statement being he wanted to retire a Clipper. This is what he wants to say. He wants to win a championship and for the organization. And those are the right things to say to the media. That is pretty true. You don't want to come up with conflicts in front of the media, who after all make crazy narratives and spin and make it into their own version of the story. Media can never be trusted. So you don't take your stuff out on the media. That's always my belief. But it's just interesting that Paul George made the statement after what he did in the bubble. Like, Paul George played well in the Denver series up until like maybe game 7. People forget to remember this because they just remember him in game 7 hitting the side of the backboard. And I tell you, sometimes I don't like Paul George and the statements that he makes, and people like hype him up so much, but I'm just telling facts because he was playing pretty well until game 7, where he dropped a dud and he had 4 for 16 shooting, and he hit the side of the frigging backboard. The side of the frigging backboard, wide open in the corner. You're down 15, hit the side of the backboard, and that was game 7. So the Clippers lost, but props to the Denver Nuggets, man. I'm not saying that, but Paul George, you hit the side of the backboard. You were wide open in the corner. And he played pretty bad in the Mavs series, not gonna lie. I mean, he was pretty bad in the Mavs series. This led to people calling him and putting a new nickname, Pandemic P, around Paul George. The memes just flew for Paul George in the playoffs, and the performances he made immediately, a bad performance, and just Twitter clowning him, never-ending clownery. So Paul George just signed an extension. So it's ironic that the same statements that the statements that he made in Indy and in OKC meant the same thing, and within like a few months or even a year, he was traded away. So him signing an extension doesn't mean anything. It actually doesn't mean anything, because he echoed the same statement in Indy and OKC, and what happened? just traded him. He requested the trade. The only reason I'm pretty believing what Paul George says is because he is from LA, being near the LA area in Palmdale. He played in Fresno State. He wanted to be a Clipper because he himself went to the front office and requested a trade. And Kawhi Leonard and Paul George talked to each other, so he went up, requested a trade. So that is my analysis of what Paul George thinks. It's just so ironic that he happens to say this while he disappointed in the bubble, not overall, but in the game that mattered the most for the Clippers in Game 7, blowing a 3-1 lead. So pretty ironic for Paul George to say the same statements he did, yet requesting trades to other other teams, and then making statements that he wants to stay, he wants to bring a chip. Well, he has nothing but come up short in some of the biggest games that his team needed him to come up in. Because don't forget, Kawhi Leonard was pretty much carrying the Clippers offense. I mean, let's not take too much away from this. He was carrying the Clippers offense because everything they did was put the ball in Kawhi's hand, let him go to work, and he used him as a point guard. I mean, this was a flaw on the Clippers roster construction. And Paul George, they brought you here for a reason, buddy. You were the second option on the Clippers, and I said the Clippers was winning. I was wrong. I'm not mad. Okay, and this is nothing against Lakers. I'm coming confident out here saying that I thought the Clippers was gonna win. I have no regret saying that, and I'm not upset about me being wrong. I thought this is gonna be a year where the Clippers gonna win, and I was wrong. I thought Paul George was gonna be better, but nah. He came up short on the biggest game. The Clippers needed him to come up big because Kawhi needed help. And all talks about the Clippers' depth, they didn't actually come up big because Kawhi needed to carry their offense because he's the only guy who was giving Denver buckets. And soon all they had to do was start double teaming him and make the other guys shoot. So nothing happened there. So this extension proves nothing. It proves nothing. And I just came here to say that good for Paul George. He got the extension that he wanted. He's staying. His extension for 4-year 190 could be maximized to 5-year 226. So that's pretty good of him for him to get that. But I don't know where the Clippers go from here because he could end up requesting a trade if things go south, or both of them could walk. Both of them could go. But at least this makes the Los Angeles Clippers could get something back for Paul George. If any team wants him, a guy like him. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think about Paul George's comments. I think this is gonna be a different spin on him because he is from the from the Californian area, and I don't know whether he means it, but this is a pretty positive spin in the direction for me. So just let me know what you guys think about Paul George's comments in the comment section below. So I thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you like the content put out by me, please subscribe to the channel. Do not miss a piece of daily NBA content, and I will be seeing you guys in the next video.